Maybe we can start with something that we should agree with if we're reading the press, that we have a problem. More particularly, I think we have just three that I'd like to start as context for this. And the first one is this. I don't think a nation should be proud of itself if it can't house its people. And we have a massive and it seems intractable problem on that front. And the first of my plums from Alfred Bottom's book is, this is 1934. Not much has changed on that front. Still, one of society's biggest challenges. Our buildings are, some of them crumbling, and many of them are unsuitable. I was talking last year to the NHS Scotland, and their 1 billion capital programme over the next period, 800 million of that is fixing defects in building. So that's our second problem. And as we know, I guess, all of our schools, every one of them, needs to be refurbished or rebuilt. 28,000 of them, and what a huge challenge that is. And our infrastructure is desperately needing upgrading. We're living off the heritage of the Victorians in that respect, and we need to replace what we've got and start thinking ahead as well. So we have a huge problem in terms of the extent to which the built environment contributes to the quality of our lives and growth. Three things wrong with the industry. It's upside down, by which I mean that we work in this hierarchical way, which I often call the guano problem. It's how we dish out work in the British construction industry. We give it to a god architect or engineer who dribbles it down to co-consultants and so on. Down on the guano, people actually do stuff. People who make materials and fix things to walls, floors and ceilings. That's where the money is. It comes from our class system. The idea of a hierarchy comes from that, but it separates us from the cash. You give £1 to a contractor, he keeps about 5 or 10 pence. The rest goes down to these guys. So conversations that lock us out from the manufacture of materials and the doing of the work lock out innovation. And this hierarchical, professional us and them structure does that. And we're back to front, by which I mean that all the value in a job lies in the end in its use. And we have these serious fractures in our value chain between those who design buildings and those who manage their construction, between those who manage their construction and actually do the work. So value isn't pulling things in the way that it should. And finally, nobody owns the whole process, which explains really all of our problems. So the answer is integration. And creating the only unit of success that we know we have, which is a team. But again, the problem of who should be in that team comes in. And one of my least favourite sayings, really, is we must reclaim the high ground. Interesting to see what Alfred Bottom had to say about that in 1934. The idea of tablets of stone coming down to us. But an idea that came from Matthew Taylor of this parish, which is the more professions think not about how they lock people out, that they're exclusive, but that they're inclusive. They're starting thinking about the problems of society. And recognizing that we have to stop thinking about ourselves as a series of people different from those who do the work, and even worse, different from each other. So the professions are becoming kind of curious, sort of archaic priesthood, and the idea that their job is to admit us to the Holy of Holies, to my mind, is just kind of gone as a useful way of thinking about them. And yet I can't help feeling that something would be lost if Bridget Prentice, when she was at the Constitutional Affairs, had got her way. We should admit the fact that we work for a living. The question is, how do you recognise an opportunity to make cash and yet maintain objectivity in your advice? But nonetheless, I think there is a kind of market-based approach to why it pays to be virtuous in the broadest sense. Most clients are concerned about value for money, and they attach a value to integrity. And therefore, what that means and the guarantee that they'll get it has a value. And so there's consequently a value in employing me because I say I'm a chartered something. There's a value to me being an institution that will verify that, and there's a value to me saying I don't want those people in the same institution as me, is that's the way they're going to behave. We demand of our institutions that they get tough. I think that is the beginnings of bringing together the ideas of trust and knowledge and avoiding the battle between them. And also gives us an authority with government, because it's, having spent 3 years there, I can tell you, it's pretty hard to get a word in edgewise. And for the most part, this industry comes to government and says, I've got these problems, can you sort them out for me? In the meantime, they've got the big problems I've been talking about. And I never in 3 years heard somebody say, you've got a big problem, here's how we can contribute to the solution of it. That would be a good thing for a profession, and a series of professions, and an industry to do, against the background that I've said of environmental harm and no cash. So, Aristotle, we look at things that are useful to others in the way we give our advice. We look at the quality of the way we behave and the quality of what we know, and we get that verified by an institution. And we don't just give them permission to do that, we demand of it that they do that, rather than disengage and allow. And moving seamlessly back in time from Aristotle to Plato, I thought I'd have the temerity to improve on Plato. These good values of the heart and the hand and the mind and so on, and what we should be selling out there. Learning, that we're educated, that we have knowledge, we have skill. Judgment, that we can, this is where we beat the computer, that we can take that information and turn it into advice about how we solve some of these big social problems we have, as well as our individual clients. Propriety, you can take it for granted that we will act in a certain way. Well, I've chosen objectivity as the word, but why our advice should be taken seriously. Because notwithstanding that ka-ching moment, the advice itself is based in the best interests of the person we're talking to. And all that comes down to leadership, an industry that leads itself. And so where are the leaders that will lead this forward? I think that we're at a moment. I don't know that we should be alarmed, not least because there's not much point, but we should be awake. And I think that the moment is both a threat. We could wake up one day and find that everything that we value has gone. You must see how different it is in professional terms from the world of the bottom, but also how similar it is in terms of the challenges that we face. And if we get that right, then I think we have something to be proud of as individuals, as institutions, as professions, and as an industry. And that's the world that I joined to try and do some good, as most of you did. Now is the moment, I think, and I'm going to leave the last word, like so many others, to Alfred Bottom, because he said it in 1934. It's been true every year since.